Today, Eliza and Jeremy are on the road to pick up a truck to start a brand new project. Then, they're back in the shop extending their Prerunner's cage and building a skid plate to protect their fuel cell. Finally, they're getting their radiator mounted in just the right spot to keep their V8 Coyote running cool. It's all right here on XOR.
Hey guys, welcome to XOR. Well, the sun is shining, we're out on the road pulling the big trailer, and it's going to be a great day because today is new project day.
That's right, we're picking up a 2001 Toyota Tacoma that we've already got solid plans for and high hopes.
Where is this thing? It's got to be around here somewhere.
Oh, there it is. Oh, it's so pretty.
Well, that's going to work perfectly.
It's nice. Now this 2001 Toyota Tacoma is everything I wanted as a 16-year-old newly licensed driver. Crew Cab V6 TRD Off-Road Edition.
And we are going to cut this thing up. All of the independent suspension is going to go. And like Eliza said, we've got solid plans for this because underneath here is going to be a solid axle.
And our high hopes means that the tire size is going several sizes up, and we're going to make this our cruise utility vehicle. And this is our good friend Rudy that we've bought the truck off of. He has made this the best project pickup ever because he brought us tamales.
And I suppose we got to come up with a name for the truck too.
Hot tamale.
Well, where's my you know what? Never mind. I got a taco.
All right, when I talked about raising this thing up earlier, on the way over, Jeremy and I decided that we want this toy sitting on 40s.
That's right, because we want this thing to be way bigger and way better because, well, we're going to take this toy through some pretty serious stuff.
And speaking of toys, we've got one on 35s that we need to finish up.
Let's go work on the Prerunner.
With the front end pretty much buttoned up, it is time to start to make our way towards the back.
That's right. Just like in the front, we're going to have a whole lot going on here in the rear. So we're going to have to come up with enough tubing to mount our cooling system, our fuel system, and our spare tires.
That's a whole lot of tubing in the rear.
The first step is to make sure that our chassis is perfectly level, because we're going to come straight up off of the chassis or plumb off the chassis and mark a hole so we can drill and get into the inside of our roll cage. Using a 2-inch hole saw, we marry ourselves to this position. Using the masking tape as a guide, I'm going to mark a vertical line so I can cut. I need to get a little bit deeper into the cab to make sure that I can weld completely around the roll cage. Save that piece for later. And back down on the chassis, I'm going to clean it up to prep to install the first tube. To ensure everything stays plumb, I'm using a magnetic level. And this angle shows why I cut the roof just a little bit more. And the next step is to gain access to the lower bar of the roll cage. And getting rid of what's left of the sheet metal will let the bar slide right into place. Using our magnetic level again, I can mark the length of our first tie-in bar. And after a quick trip to the notcher, this bar can be tacked into place. Further down the chassis is more prep for the next piece of the puzzle. The rear bar comes down at a 45-degree angle like this because we have future plans for a spare tire carrier. And after that, we're going to add a couple pieces of cross bracing to tie this all together. And to stick with our 45-degree theme, we got 2 more braces to tie us into the chassis. All the tubing we're using in the back is the same as the front. 1 3/4, 120 wall, DOM. Well, there you go. Now that we have this side done, I can go ahead and duplicate it onto the other side. But for now, I know exactly where the cooling's gonna go, where our spare tire is gonna go, and where our shock mount's gonna go. So the next step is to work on building the shock mount.
Up next, we're protecting our fuel cell with a skid plate. And later, we're getting our radiator mounted up high.
Hey guys, welcome back to XOR. Now you know we're going to be running fiberglass box sides on the back of our Prerunner. And since our fuel system is going to be back there, these are going to offer 0 protection. So we're going to have to do a couple of things. First, we're going to have to add a bar to tie the 2 pieces of frame together before we cut the stock spare tire mount out of the way. Secondly, we're going to have to build a mount to actually put the fuel cell in place. And third, we're going to build a skid plate to tie the whole thing together and protect our fuel system. And well, that all starts with tubing. This bar will not only tie the 2 frame rails together, it will serve as a base for the fuel cell mounts. It's time to let the sparks fly. We're using our Lincoln Electric Tomahawk 1000 plasma cutter to remove the stock spare tire mount. Now you can use anything to get the job done. You can use a cutoff wheel, you can use a regular torch, you can even use a Sawzall. But this sure makes short work of it. Simple as that. Just like up top, a little frame cleaning gets us started. This piece will serve as a frame stiffener and will be the second mount for our fuel cell carrier. And just because we want everything to fit just right, our level comes back into play, along with a quick double check of our measurements. And now we can start on the bottom part of our fuel cell cage. These lower cage bars are bent to accommodate the depth of our fuel cell, which measures in at 10 inches. I'm using an old truck jack to support the aluminum skid plate that will help protect our fuel cell. Notice how I have shaped the front of the skid plate to match the curve of the bottom of the 2 cage bars. Just barely under. I'd say that's centered. To secure the aluminum to our bars, we're using some self-tapping button head screws. I love using locking pliers to help hold stuff into place until it's secure. Using our 2-speed drill from Matco, I'm using the high speed to help the self-tapping screw cut and the low speed to drive it home. Hopefully this fits. Perfect. And it's protected too.
When we come back, we'll show you the best way to mount a radiator to the cage. Stay tuned.
Hey guys, welcome back to XOR and the build-up of our Prerunner Ranger. Now that the rear cage is all done, we can go ahead and mount the radiator, and that all starts with some aluminum brackets. Now I've chosen to use the TIG welder because it's the most efficient way and will give me the cleanest results. Going in our Prerunner is a Griffin radiator that we got from summitracing.com, and it will have plenty of cooling for our Coyote. Once again, using a pair of locking pliers to hold the radiator in place, I'm marking the holes to drill for the roll cage mounts. Using a step drill, I'm just going to make my way through the aluminum to put a mark on the roll cage. And I'll repeat this process for all 4 mounts. In the same way we use multiple size drill bits to get to the final size we need, we're just going to use step bits to get to that final size. Doing it with a step drill bit just makes it a whole lot quicker. To mount our radiator, we're not just going to run a bolt through these holes. We're actually going to sleeve them to retain the strength of our roll cage. And the final hole size exactly matches the outside diameter of our tubing, which is 7/8. For the sleeves, we're using heavy-walled 7/8 OD tubing. After beveling the edge of the sleeve just a little bit, we'll get ready to tack these in place. And just like the mounts on the radiator, I'm going to TIG weld these into place so I can keep the welds nice and small. Now I'm just tacking these into place, but you don't have to use a TIG welder. You can use your MIG welder, but just be prepared to grind your welds off a little bit to get that perfect fit. I used 4143 TIG rod for the aluminum radiator, and for the roll cage sleeves, I'm using ER70S-6.
After the break, we finish getting our radiator installed on the cage. Stick around.
Hey guys, welcome back to XOR and the install of our radiator on the roll cage of our Prerunner. This will keep our 400 plus horse Coyote illuminator cool while running through the desert. We're just mocking this in place for now, but when it comes to final install, we will be using grade 8 hardware from Industrial Depot with nylon lock nuts, because this thing is going to see a lot of abuse. Notice that the inlet and outlet are facing down and towards the engine. That means we'll be plumbing in aluminum tubing to our Coyote. And after this, we will test fit the fan shroud. Our radiator and fan shroud came as a kit, but since we mounted our radiator on the roll cage, we're going to have to modify our fan shroud to sit down on the radiator. It turns out that the height of our roll cage tube and the height of our fan shroud are almost identical, so all we have to do is trim to fit. When cutting aluminum, you can use just about any cutoff wheel. This one is just a little thinner than about 1/16 of an inch. And with that small of a cutting surface, it's going to slice right through this fan shroud in a hurry. So take your time. Leaving the fans bolted to the shroud helps the shroud maintain its shape while being cut and helps keep the piece from vibrating, resulting in a cleaner cut. For more information on anything on today's show, go to PowerNationTV.com. Well, now that you know how we mounted our radiator up here, here's why we chose to do so. We're not going to be running any glass in the cab of the Prerunner, so that's going to allow for all of that air to come and hit the face of the radiator. And the reason why we chose to put our fans on top of the radiator is because we were going to hook these up as a Polar style fan, and that's going to help cool our big Coyote down. And since we're talking about air, Eliza and myself are not going to want to be breathing all of that dusty, dirty air. So we're going to be hooking up individual driver air systems, and that's going to pump nice clean air into our helmets. Now the only thing we have to do is find a spot to mount these. Hey guys, one of the most common things that you guys are doing out there is installing bigger wheels and tires on your truck. Well, also one of the most common issues you're going to have with that is that your tires are probably going to end up rubbing on your inner fenders, kind of like it does here on our Tacoma. So we're going to show you how to install a leveling kit. Now, unlike a lift kit that lifts the both front and rear, a leveling kit just levels out the front of the truck. So the easiest way to show you guys how to do that is to simply install it on the Tacoma. With our truck sitting on the ground, we're going to put a mark on the fender flare at about 40 inches. That way we can see how much height we gain. For this truck, the first step is to remove the upper ball joint off the spindle. The next step is to remove the 3 nuts that hold the spring plate on. Make sure you only loosen these 3 nuts. Do not loosen the center nut, because bad things could happen. With the strut loose, we move to the bottom to remove the bolt that holds it to the lower control arm. Now we went to summitracing.com and picked up their leveling kit for our Tacoma. And it comes with everything you need to put the kit on there. It's got a couple of lift blocks, some studs to go onto the spring plate, and all the hardware. And installation's pretty simple. And that starts with applying some thread locker that comes with the kit. And then thread on the 3 supplied stud extensions. Now these don't need to be a specific torque, just get them good and tight. With those installed, the supplied urethane strut spacer slides right into place. And it's as simple as that. Now all we have to do is reinstall this back in the truck, set the truck on the ground, and see how much height we gain. And there you go. Looks like we picked up about 2 inches. Now if you're going to be installing this kit on your truck in your driveway, it's going to take you a couple of hours. And make sure you follow the instructions for for the kit that fits in your vehicle. Well, once you're all done, your truck will be sitting right back where it should be.